Well, welcome to FDIC 2022. What a lovely event this is. Everybody back together. We were here in August, a little bit of a smaller crowd. We've navigated the pandemic. People are back together. It's good to see brothers and sisters. This show is going to be a combination of two shows. We're missing one of our cadre and my good friend and colleague, Chris Nam, who fell a little ill and took a trip back home. So we're combining Taking It to the Streets, Chris's show and my show, Fire and Training with Doug Cline. And I've got a great group of people. What I'm going to do is let them introduce themselves, tell the group a little bit about that are listening, who they are and what they got going on and what's going on at FDIC with them. So I'll start down here with you, Arthur.
All right. My name is Arthur Ashely. I am a captain with the city of Lexington, Kentucky. I've been in the department right at 29 years. At FDIC, my class is Truck Company Operations Without the Truck, and Facebook page, Truckee Talk, and 36,000 members on that. Nothing but truck work, and just constantly traveling around the country, spreading the good word. So that's about it.
All right, Chief.
Doug, thank you. Danny Sheridan. I'm with the New York City Fire Department. I have 36 years now, and I'm filling in for Chris. Chris took sick the other night. We went out for dinner. He wasn't feeling well, so I saw Doug. I said, if you need a hand, I'll be happy to jump in. I soon, hopefully, God willing, to be a deputy chief. I plan on getting promoted and going to the fire academy. I had spent last year, I spent a few months with a new concept that Frank Lieb had developed. It was like this remote tactical training. And what we were doing, because of COVID, we weren't able to bring the units out to the rock. So we brought the training to them in the field via WebEx meetings. So we go out to a spot, film something for about 20 minutes, and we get sent out to the field. And it's taken some hold. So Mike Champo now is kind of minding the store until I get back there. And yeah, it's a lot of stuff going on with Frank. Frank is very innovative when it comes to training, and he's got Chuck Downey there at the Rock as well. So I hope to join them soon. And I'm doing my thing here at FDIC. I had a nice class. I took the UL and put my own spin on it. It's like 47 bullet points from the UL boot camp back in 19, and hope to keep developing that. And that's about it. All right, Mike.
Hey, Mike Lopina. I'm a retired captain from Fire District just outside of Chicago. Currently working as a volunteer firefighter pump operator for the Garden Homes Fire District, just on the southwest side of Chicago. Been involved in the fire service for 33 years, and currently myself and best friend Tom Tulipano run Firefighter Education Group. We primarily focus on building construction and fire behavior for our classes. We've presented here at FDIC before, we're just not this year, and we enjoy that quite a bit. We have a Facebook page, Firefighter Education Group, Facebook group, I should say, not a page. And then also on Instagram, we have FF Ed Group, which we try to post building construction, tactics, fire behavior stuff, lessons learned. I mean, just trying to share as much as we can, and trying to get the message out to everybody, so I've been doing that for about 13 years now, and we look to expand and travel as much as I've been down with Arthur down in southern or central Ohio a couple of years ago for a conference where we presented, and he also presented his stuff. So yeah, just enjoy it like everybody else, and enjoy being here. This is definitely a recharge, like the last group was talking about. It's good. Even I've been coming to Indianapolis since it came here in 1996, so it's a good time.
Well, I'm Doug Cline. I run the fire and training program. I'm also an assistant chief with Overy County Fire Rescue. That's the Myrtle Beach, South Carolina area. So if you're on vacation, feel free to stop in any of our 41 houses and see our folks. But part of what I have going on is not only the show, but we're part of the fire engineering family. And my part of that is the fireofficer.com. So we're posting stuff about fire officer and things like that. Social media wise, you can follow me On Facebook is Douglas Cline. I put up a lot of things there. On Twitter, I have the Fire Officer 1, and then I have my own Twitter account, which is Decline11. So a lot of good things, traveling some, doing some things out on the streets after COVID. Just got back from the great state of Vermont. Lovely time up there. Great to be back with friends and families. That was my 16th year being at the Addison County School, and just great stuff. We talked about it. He mentioned it about how energizing FDIC was. And if you didn't get to see Bobby Halton this morning, it was like, I was so pumped. I was so ready to go. And, you know, it's like, I want to get out of my seat. I want to run. I want to do this. I want to go do some things. Dan Shaw comes up and I'm wearing the phone out with notes of thoughts. Things are coming to my head. And I'm like, man, I could do this back home. And this is a good idea that just popped into my head. So that's what FDIC does for folks when they come here, they get energized. So Arthur, talk about how energized you get and tell us a little bit about what you're doing up here this week.
Well, I've been coming to FDIC since it was in Cincinnati in '91. Not to one up you, but yeah, I mean, I just
appreciate you.
Yeah, so it was in Cincinnati, and that was a long, long time ago. I was 21 years old. So for anybody who is in the fire service for the training and for the classrooms and the workshops and stuff, when they come to this, they're getting their batteries recharged. And when the opening session comes, Bobby Halton never fails to get everybody fired up. I mean, never fails. That this morning was absolutely outstanding. And the stories that he told behind that would really make you think, you know. I think it was really worth everybody's time to be there. Lots and lots of people over this for over the years. Dan Shaw, excellent job, you know, and you were taking notes, you were saying, I'm sitting here just thinking stuff as he's saying and going on. You know, for me, I've been coming so long. I started as a student many moons ago. And so I just kind of stepped up one day, and a mentor of mine from the group says, it's your time to teach. And I said, okay, do you think I'm ready? And I said, yeah, absolutely. So from that point on, I just took and run with it, you know, and gave my ideas, just like Danny was talking about. He gives his mix on the UL and stuff like that. You know, I give my perspective on some things coming from where we work and everything. But it's all the same wherever we go. Fire is fire, and construction and building construction. And it may be different somewhere, but, you know, void space, and buildings are built the same way. And fire burns the same way. It's just, you know, it burns a little bit faster now. So it changes things. So for me, my class is about, not having, you know, a majority of people not having a ladder truck. But they don't realize they're doing truck work. And then, you know, truck work takes place at almost every single fire there is, you know. So it in itself opens a lot of eyes. But the big thing that I push on is that, you know, not only do good truck work, but to the way fires are burning faster, we have to be inside quicker to get to the people that need us. Just like Ray McCormick said many years ago, that their last line of defense, 50-50 shot, you know, either you do it or you don't. And so in my travels, I found that there's a lot of places that don't really search well. And so in my little bubble, my little world, I'm just trying to change things a little at a time and leave it better than I found it.
So Danny, how long have you been coming to FDIC?
Not as long as you guys. 2005. I met Bobby. Let's see, 2005. So I sent two people an email. I was doing a lot of work in South America, you know, and another magazine and Bobby. And I remember it was Good Friday. It was 2005. And within 5 minutes, I get a response from Bobby Halton. What can I do for you? The other guy, actually, I knew him. I didn't realize it was the same guy. And he actually sits in my firehouse. Well, he's passed now, but he has sat in my firehouse. And I had no idea that he was even who he was, you know. So yeah. But that started the relationship with Bobby. And I have to be honest with you, I'm very intimidated by FDIC. Like, to think that I could even teach here would be like just mind-bending. You know, I remember being very enthusiastic, you know, working down in South America. And we had really done some real change down there. You know, we had brought some FDNY guys, some guys from New Hampshire, and, you know, up in the New England area. And we had didn't know a word of Spanish, and yet we were able to do this training, you know. So I wanted to do some of that here, and I realized how, it's very basic level stuff. And I thought here, I'm thinking like, wow, I had this great, so I got rejected. Boom. So that was a little humbling, So then I think the following year, I worked up the courage to do some other class, I think, because I was really good with high-rise stuff, like standpipe, because I had a lot of projects, and they accepted my class. And between that and then South America and back and forth, it just kind of grew, and then one thing after another. And then, so to where I am now, soon, hopefully to be a deputy chief. And, they asked me to write a book. So the book should come out next year. And it's just a compilation of some stories over my last, maybe 30 some odd years in the FDNY, which I thought would like kind of just happen to everybody. And then, people are like, wow, did that really, like, that happen? And I sometimes still scratch my head like, wow, did that really happen? But so the relationship has grown to the point now where Bobby had asked me to be the keynote speaker next year, and I haven't told anybody because I was still like, when he called me, I thought he was talking about somebody else. And then he said, no, it's you, you dummy. So I said, okay. So I've been mentoring. That's what I've been doing this week. I've been kind of mentoring. I've been sitting in on a few, I was watching here and there some classes, but basically trying to get ready for next year. And so now I'm not nervous though, to be honest with you. I mean, it's not nervousness. It's just more, I don't want to let FDIC down. Because it's such, the standards are very high here. This is like, I always tell people, it's like the Super Bowl, and so I want to be able to maintain that level of, of expert, of professionalism and whatnot. So last night I was with FDNY chief. He's chief of training, Frank Lead, who's a dynamo. I mean, me, him, and Chuck just get along like so well. And he had mentioned to one of our other chiefs from the FDNY, who's now been promoted. He was working with me for a while. And Frank was very excited. He says, Danny's going to be doing the keynote next year. And he didn't have such a nice thing to say. I was like, all right. You're entitled to your opinion, So it doesn't really bother me as much. I mean, because I know what I do, and I feel like sometimes God really works in mysterious ways. Because
he does.
No sooner did I leave, I told the guys good night. It was really late. It was like midnight. I was like, Frank, I want to go home. I don't stay up midnight. I don't drink, so I don't want to be up. And I walked out, and some guy grabbed me just randomly. He says, Chief, can I talk to you? And I said, yeah, what's going on? He says, Chief, I just want to thank you. He says, you changed my whole fire career. He says, I took one of your classes. You taught me something and you stayed with me. I didn't really understand it. And you stayed with me. I learned how to, whatever it was, cut something. I don't even know. I'm not sure if I even know what he was talking about. Maybe it was a forced entry thing, whatever. And he says, I've been following you. I take your classes and you don't. And then you inspire me to inspire others. And we do another conference. And like, that's how FDIC is. You know what I mean? Like the people that come here, and I used to preach this in South America that, I'll teach you, but you have to spread the gospel. It's like the gospel. Right. You have to spread it. And in a sense, we talked about this the other night with the fellow from New York, Paul. And what's happening now is we're getting firefighters coming down to the FDNY Fire Academy. And the idea is to teach these guys and then bring it back to your department. Like you can't put a light under a lamp. You know what I mean? I think that's written somewhere in the big book, the good book. But, you got to share the wealth. And I think that's what happens here at FDIC. You get every department, how big this country is, Canada, wherever, Australia, all over the world, they send their few people and with the idea to go there and listen to what Doug has to say, or go take your class or whatever. And, and bring it back. The idea is to bring it back, not to hoard it.
Yeah. The key is taking it back and sharing it.
Share it. Yeah.
Knowledge is power, but only if you share it.
Yeah, share it. True. Yeah.
So Mike.
Yes.
What do you think about all these ventures in FDIC and going back a few years? You were talking about being in Cincinnati.
No, I was not. He was.
I was
here for the first Indianapolis.
Indianapolis.
Yeah. And I was just talking to somebody the other day about how that first year it was here, This did not exist. This would have been, I think, a parking lot or something here, because it was just the Wabash East, the 100 rooms, and then the RCA Dome was across. Basically, it ended at this hallway right here. Was the end of the RCA Dome, and it was small. There was probably 500 vendors here, if that, and just watching it grow over the years and seeing familiar faces over the years too. Like, hey, I remember you were here in '98 or whatever, and then being able to go to the classes and just take the information in and bring it back to the end of sharing with everybody. I've made it a point, this volunteer department that I'm on now is very young people, and they are very energetic. They want to learn. They want to be the best they can be. It's outstanding group of people. But I told them, I sent an email out to every member in the department a couple of weeks ago, said, I'm on the tail end of my career. I said, I don't know it all, certainly not, but I said, I know a lot. And what I do know, any of you want to listen, and you want to take the time, I said, I'm going to dump all this knowledge. I said, it's there for the taking. Come and just grab it. Take whatever you want. Ask me whatever you want. I said, and because I don't know it all, if there's something that you ask me that I don't have an answer, I said, I'm very enthusiastically going to go with you and find the answer so that we both can learn, because I'm still in the stage where I want to learn. That's why I'm here now, and I don't want to stop coming, even though I'm retired, so I mean, I'm retired from the career side of it, but still volunteering. I still want to come here and learn and figure out and pass it on. I mean, it's just, it's always been that way, coming and listening to the opening ceremonies and meeting new people, and seeing old friends and everything like that. It's indescribable. It's phenomenal.
It's really no words to put that match the emotions. So I'm going to date myself a little bit. I guess I'm the old head kind of in the room. This is my 43rd year in the fire service. I started when I was 14 as a junior member, and I went to FDIC in Cincinnati.
You're younger than me.
I know, but I started young.
Okay. All right, kid.
I love it when people call me kid. There's so many people in my life that were great mentors, people that were at FDIC. Yeah. I mean, you're talking like Alan Brunacini, who became a personal friend and mentor. John Hoagland from Miffrey, who never called me by my name until his last year of life. To my face, it was always, hey kid. So to me that's like really cool. So I go back into the 80s, going to Cincinnati, and being at FDIC. And the reason that FDIC moved from Cincinnati to Indianapolis is they outgrew Cincinnati.
They did.
And phenomenal stuff that went there. In fact, my big break in the fire service came in 1993. Being at FDIC, I was an advocate that was there, just like the kids from these colleges and people that come from the colleges to work up here, check people in. I moved, tables around, chairs around, swept floors. At the time period, I did a lot of carrying and setting up a slide carousels. And sometimes there'd be 3 or 4 slide carousels, and they were hitting.
You're going to have to, because about 90% of the audience now doesn't know what that is.
Well, it's a little tiny slide about yay big that you put down in this little round thing that goes around. And I remember making these as an instructor, and you had a table in front of you that was lighted, and don't turn the table over because you had to start all over again. I've done that multiple times, but I remember being in this big room of instructors, and these were the big of the big. These were the people writing articles, writing books that were presenting at FDIC, and I'm standing on the wall like Poindexter. We're all in coats and ties. It was a pretty big affair. In walks this guy that has on a pair of blue jeans and a Hawaiian shirt. And I was like, boy, they lost his luggage or he didn't get the memo. So everybody flocked to him, and it was Chief Brunacini. And I mean, so I was standing on the wall like Poindexter anyway, because I was like, I don't need to talk to any of these people. I'm dumb. I'm so far out of my league. And I can remember coming off the wall and getting a little closer. and, paying attention to what was going on. But as it was starting to break up, I slid back against the wall. So I couldn't get blindsided. And lo and behold, over here was something I'd been really listening to and studying and reading about, was this guy by the name of Dave Dotson. He was talking about the art of reading smoke. And it was like, holy cow, that's Dave Dotson, and I came off the wall and I had a beer in my hand, and I came off the wall and I was listening, and all of a sudden I get blindsided by this guy in a Hawaiian shirt that comes up and says, "Hey kid, how you doing?" Of course, obviously my little birdie on my shoulder comes out and says, "Don't say anything stupid." Bird knows me pretty well. And, I said, "I'm having a good time." He said, "You enjoying the FDIC?" I said, "Yes, sir. It's an honor and a privilege to be here as an advocate." He said, "Good, good." Of course, the birdie is saying, "Shut up, just shut up." And before the bird could say much more, Chief Brunacini goes, "You know what type of music this is?" And there was playing classical music in the background. Of course, I said, "Yes, sir. It's classical music." The only time going to college, taking a generalized music class paid off in my whole career. But this is big. This is like the big time of the big payoff. And little birdie said, "Shut up, shut up." And of course, I answered in classical. And then he goes, "Well, by chance, do you know the composer?" Now, I did not like this music class. I made fun of the professor. He was a young, energetic guy. He was passionate about music. I was there to get at least a C to get through. And I can remember when we were in the classical section, we got to Tchaikovsky, was Dance of the Toy Flute from the Nutcracker Suites. And he would always go, "Can you hear the oboes playing?" So when I went to answer Brunacini, the bird spoke, and before he could get it out of his mouth, I did exactly what I normally did. I mocked the instructor. And the little birdie went, "You're an idiot." And of course, Chief Brunacini goes, "Excellent. I like a guy that has a good, diverse, background and culture." He said, "You'll be on main stage with me tomorrow doing a skit." And I'm like, I was having seizures, whatever else I might have been having. And I said, "I got to ask my chief." And before I could get that, I said, "Oh, I'll talk to Dan for you." I'm like, oh my God, he knows my chief by the first name. This is not good. This is not good. So I don't know how many of y'all have ever seen the interview that took place in the NCAA in basketball with NC State. And they're interviewing one of the guys who was a really good basketball player, not so good with choices of words. And he was able to shoot with both hands. He was very talented. And they asked him that question. He said, "Yeah, it's good to be amphibious." So the word's ambidextrous. He said amphibious. So I became amphibious. After that, I had 2 beers. And I was alternating. But here comes Dan Jones, fire chief. He was the president of ISFSI, or going in as president. He's like, "Oh, that's great, blah, blah, blah." And I'm like, oh my God, thank goodness. And then you walk out on main stage at FDIC. This was in Cincinnati, smaller than what it is here. Now, I have had the opportunity to come out on main stage here at FDIC and give away the George D. Post Instructor of the Year a couple of times and things like that. And we used to come out with the Ray Downey Courage and Valor as the National Fire Academy Alumni Association. But that's a big sea of people. But I can remember getting on stage and how I was terrified. I was truly terrified. But what came out of that is some of the things that you said, Danny, is about people taking you under their wing and mentoring you and coaching you and paying it forward. Well, Chief Brunacini did that. And throughout my whole career, he was a very instrumental person that I went to and asked questions. And what do you think about this? And how do you do this? Where do we go from here with the things that are going on? And I remember going in promotional processes to him and a number of other people that were in that room that night and became, as I got really involved in ISFSI, really strong mentors, like Harry Carter. I never forget sitting at the Maritime Institute at one of the fall conferences for ISFSI. And, of course, everybody knows Harry Carter, big man with a bow tie and plays the tuba. And he was sitting there and he said, "Doug, you know what's good about us?" And I'm thinking, oh my God, words of wisdom from a mentor. I'm like tuned in. And I said, "No, what, Harry?" And of course, he had a scotch. And I'm drinking a bourbon, you know, being a Southern guy, I got to have my bourbon. He says, we get paid good money to bullshit people. And he started chuckling. And I'm like sitting there dumbfounded. And he said, I'm just kidding. He said, isn't it fun? Isn't it just awesome to see people's faces light up when you say something that they get? You know, and I know we've all had that moment when our faces lit up over opportunities or chances. And I can remember starting after FDIC, what happened to my career, you know, from being involved with a variety of groups and writing and doing things to going to other conferences that, you know, were available to speak. Yeah, I remember when I did all the work and 2 in, 2 out came about. And that was the thing. And I kind of am the geek anyway with standards and get a pocket protector, you know, for being the geek. You know, I studied that stuff because it's part of what was in my realms all the time. And I remember talking about 2 in, 2 out. And I did that attached to rapid intervention of the concept at King of Prussia at a fall conference for ISFSI. So all these people have played instrumental parts in careers, you know, to include many, many people that are here and a lot of the things that we get to do now, just like this show here. It's because of great people like Bobby Halton, you know, that gives you that opportunity. So let's talk a little bit about paying it forward. When we talk about taking it to the streets and we talk about fire and training, we talk about the 2 shows, we put them together. What are we really doing? What do we do as instructors? We share knowledge. We pay everything forward. We give people opportunities. And right now I could live 3 lifetimes and never get out of debt to Dan Jones, who was a fire chief, much less people like Alan Brunacini, Bobby Halton, you know, the Harry Carters, you know, all these people that are out there, you know, friends today. I actually ran into Jerry Tracy, FDNY retired battalion chief. And I can remember he was like a firefighter talking about laying a can of food on the floor and you know, legacy style construction and all to see if the floor was starting to sag and it rolling. And I still use that today. I mean, you talk about paying things forward. So let's talk about that. Anybody want to jump in and talk about paying it forward?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, that's what it's always been. You know, it was a couple of years into into my career, starting off as a volunteer and working my way from part-time to career. The moment I had the opportunity to share what I had learned early on as a you know, candidate firefighter, rookie firefighter, brand new firefighter, passing on that stuff, and then, you know, at every level, the more I took in, the more I wanted to dump out. It just it does no good, and I cringe when I hear somebody with the kind of the you know, oh, if you only knew what I knew. Well, yeah, you know, you got to share the information. You got to pay it forward because, and one of the things, so with you doing leadership, one of the things when it came time for me after I was promoted to lieutenant, my career department works in the officers of that rank and above grade the candidates coming into that testing for that. And we'd get a sheet that says, you know, rate, you know, what's their supervisory abilities, what's their personal, you know, personal interaction abilities, whatever. And I said, when you look at this, you have to look at this as, who do I want 4 more of? When we promote this person or that person, do I want 4 more of this guy that goes out and takes the time to explain things and takes the time to mentor whoever he can, help people out that are struggling? Or do I want the guy that, you know, has 25 years on the job and is just taking this so he can get a bump out the door and has never gone any classes, never done anything to mentor or whatever? Who do I want 4 more of? Because you are not influencing who you have right now. You are potentially influencing the next 100 years of the fire service. You know, in that, you know, if you guys were in my company and say I had 30 years on or 20 years on and you had 5 years on, when it comes time for you to get promoted in 5 or 10 years, you're going to go off and you're going to each get your own 4 people. And those 4 people will only have 5 years on. So then when it comes time, they will go forward and they will go forward. And the next thing you know, we're dealing with 3 or 4 generations from now that are all going back to maybe not me, but the 3 of you, because my hope, and I tell this to the 2 of my 3 boys that are firefighters, I want you to be right now at their age and their time on the job and everything. I want you to be ahead of where I was. I want you to be better than me. And I say that about any fireman that's underneath me. I want you to be better than me.
Absolutely.
And that's, I don't know how else to say it. And I know I'm not alone in thinking. I know it's not, I didn't, invent that thought process that I want to do this nesting doll effect of everybody, as you open it up, you can go back, this is where this guy got it from. Because I go back and the people I learned from, I know that when I came on, I was learning from guys that started in the 1950s and 60s. And I know they picked up stuff from guys and they were good because they listened to the guys who came on in the 30s and 40s, and so, appreciating that generational thing and knowing where we came from, not just where we came from last year or the year before, but where we came from 100, 200, 300 years ago, because that helps you be a better fireman when you know the whys of everything. And again, that's what you want to pass on. And that's why I want to know, and I've always wanted to know, and I still want to know, and I'm going to want to know the whys of stuff. And there's nothing wrong with that. I know people get vilified for asking, well, why do we do that? It's in the approach of how you ask that why, but we need to know the whys, and the whys makes all of us better. And like I said, it's all about taking that attitude and passing that on to people.
So what do y'all think? Anything?
What he says is exactly right. It's one thing I have to add to what he's saying is that, when I grew up around a firehouse. My dad passed away when I was a month old, but the firehouse kind of raised me, if you know what I'm saying. I'd ride my bike up there and stuff. And at 16 years old, I started volunteering. I thought this is the greatest thing in the world, 86 at 16, So we always want to leave it better than we found it. That's what they would always say. I think that we can't hoard any information. I think that what we do of giving back, teaching, when I go somewhere and I can teach someone something, I try to let them know as much as I can, because if I'm not ever coming back there, I know it's going to affect that department or whatever. Coming to FDIC, reading the articles, my mom got me a subscription in my teenage years to fire engineering. And I'm like, when you're 17 years old, and you know what a butterfly valve is and just different stuff like that. I mean, you just so you kind of I want to give back, leave it better. But, when you come to FDIC and you see these iconic people that have wrote these articles, or you see these videos and stuff, and you actually can interact with them, not only does it recharge your batteries, but it makes you want to do better. There is always somebody out there. The thing that I do is, I've done this for a long time, not as much as long as you guys, but I've done it for a long time in my little neck of the woods of the world. And I always remember where I came from.
Yep.
And I never forget where I came from. And I always give people 5 minutes of my time. I said that the other day when I did a little video before I came here. I said, if you see me, stop me, talk to me. I'll give you 5 minutes of my time, because I know who put me where I'm at to teach, and people listen to me and stuff like that, and I'm all about people having experience to teach and vetting and all that stuff. I just think that when you come here, it is the Super Bowl, just like you said, it is the Super Bowl. And, anybody can teach. I want people to know that it's, if you can teach and you understand what's going on and you get experience and stuff, you should be teaching. You should be passing on. Every training academy, I spent time as a training officer in the academy. That's a tough job. It's nonstop. And you are changing hundreds of years of the way we do things. But when they roll out the door, that's what they're doing. Or we re-up and do something, or we start something new. It's changing everything we do. So This place right here, I just can't say enough about it. I'm like a sponge when I come here. I'm like a kid in a candy store. I get to see people that, hey, I know this guy, I know that guy. This guy right here, he's a great instructor. I love his book, and stuff. It's just this one time a year we all come together, a little brotherhood and stuff, and we all love the same thing. And that's what makes it easy. You can go in any firehouse in the United States and talk shop.
And that is so true. And I can see it. Danny, your wheels are turning.
Absorbing all your conversation.
Part of what you have to know about Danny is it's amazing how fast his wheels turn upstairs and what he formulates and what he's thinking. And probably just sitting here, he's put 5 or 6 big ideas in his head of these are some things that we could do. And, these are impacts. And, one of the things, and I'm going to throw out there, Danny, a lot of people really look up to FDNY.
Absolutely.
They look up that, these are iconic people. These are, the best of the best. And, I realize there's a lot of great people at FDNY, but you also, when you're talking about it, and I've heard you say that there's a lot of great firefighters across this country. And, one of the things that I listened to Danny say on a previous show, he says, we were talking about, taxpayers and things. And Danny says, this is a lot of what I know. And, that's something that's important for folks to know. And I'm going to get you to comment on this. I'm getting there.
Okay.
I have really gotten scared about a couple of things as I've gotten older. And that's really what I don't know that I don't know.
Sure.
That scares me. And, when I get the chance to sit and talk with different people about different things, he's talking about tenement housing and he's talking about taxpayers and he's talking about things. And what he's talking about and what other people, call some of these things are not the same. So part of what I'm saying is, FDNY has great people. I've got a lot of friends on FDNY. In fact, I had one of the guys that came through Chapel Hill and went to FDNY. So it was really cool to see that. So let's talk about the greatness that we all have of sharing things that are unique to us.
So it's fun. Excuse me. You talked about the your mom got you the fire engineering.
Yeah.
So my mom had gotten remarried, had stepfather, and anyway, I used to steal his magazines, the WNYF, and I think when I was like 13, I knew that in the winter you had to open the petcock valve to drain the towel out after you used it because you didn't want it to freeze.
Right.
Like I used to devour these like a kid would devour a comic book.
Yeah.
I devoured the NYS. Then there was a show. So back then we didn't have cable, right? We had like a few channels, and then we antennas, right? The rabbit ears, And then there was a UHF channel 31. It was a New York City specific channel, and it was a show called With New York Firemen. Well, that was like watching Batman. You know what I mean? I was glued to it. The guy's name was, I can't remember his name was Jack. Oh, geez, we just had it recently. Dick Nagel. Sorry, Dick Nagel was the guy. And he did this show, and I was like mesmerized. I'd watch his show, and that's all I could think about was just being a fireman, And when I got on the job, I read Dennis Smith's book, Report from Engineering Company 82. And I was like, not only do I want to be a New York City fireman, but I want to work in the South Bronx. I want to work. That's why I want to work, And I went to Proby school in 86, and I got assigned to 17 truck. And I was the first Proby in a long time in 17 truck. Me and Frank Simpson, another guy, met. And we had this lieutenant, Dennis Callowby. Now, I viewed guys at that time that had gone through the war years in the South Bronx as like just iconic, iconic guys. Like 20-year guys in FDNY to me was just like unfathomable, And I was like kind of intrigued one day, for lack of a better word. I was at the house watching, I'm just like a sponge. I just want to learn everything about this job because these guys, they were like men. I was like a kid, and these guys were like men. And he said one day, he says, "Kid, He says, never stop learning. He says, I have 20 years on the job today, and I don't stop learning. I was like, wow, I thought you knew everything. Like, you got to be kidding me. Like, I even said that. I said, you know everything. He says, no. He says, I keep learning. And he wound up becoming a battalion chief in the 11th Battalion. And I was lieutenant in 58 Engine. So I used to see him a lot. He was a captain of 26 Truck. So he was very revered, you know. He was just very well-respected guy. But, you know, one thing about the fire service that I know is that, I don't know about anybody else, but me speaking personally, I made a ton of mistakes. I've made so many mistakes in my 36 years that I can't even believe that you know, I'm still walking, you know. And my mantra, my credo, if you want, for lack of a better word, is that when I make a mistake, I don't make a second mistake. I become an expert. I'll give you an example. So I was in a squad, right? And we were kind of, you know, we're busy, you know, but we did a lot of truck work, right? We did a lot of cutting roofs and forcing doors and searches on the floor above. And, you know, we have hose on our truck now, right? We have hose on the back. So we're supposed to be proficient in, and I was a truckie anyway, because I come from 17 Truck, you know, and my good buddy, John Buckeye, he was the engine guy. We were like kind of, you know, freaking frack, you know, and he was the engine guy, I was a truck guy. And anyway, we went to this fire up in, I don't know, somewhere up in Arthur Avenue somewhere. And sometimes we'd stumble across fires on the way back. So we stumbled across an oil burner fire in the basement by ourselves. Lieutenant goes down and goes, guys, start a foam line. You ever see the Three Stooges when they're running around and they're bumping into each other?
Truck guys trying to figure out a foam line.
And they're looking at each other like what's that? And like foam line, you know? And I'm like, he was pissed. Neil said we didn't. A real engine came and they stretched a foam line, you know. And he was mortified, you know, because we're the squad, you know, and we couldn't get this foam line to operation, you know. And well, what do you think became of me after that? Who do you think became like a foam expert?
Yeah.
I devoured that bulletin. I drilled on it nonstop, you know, because if that, you know, you happen once, you know, shame, okay, but second time, shame on me, because to let something happen again. But what I think we need to do is we can't hide our secrets and our mistakes, because listen, invariably, what we're doing is the impossible, right? Think about the reality of it. Gordon Graham spoke about this the other day, and I'm kind of dialed in with him a little bit, even though he's a little bit different than me. That's, for lack of a better word, he's a little bit off kilter a little bit, but I love the guy. He really has a lot of good stuff to say. But he's right in a sense that we're tasked with formulating a plan within 4 minutes of a major event, right? I get a phone call for a fire in a 5-story tenement on 3rd floor, and I got people trapped, and it's middle of the night, it's snowing, or whatever it is. I have to come up with a plan, like from the time I leave the firehouse till I get to the scene. You think we're going to make mistakes on that? I think so. I mean, we try not to, and we try to minimize our mistakes, you know, because we make a mistake sometimes, and one bad thing happens, 2, then 4, and exponentially it snowballs. But, you know, we try to keep those mistakes in check. And what we have to learn as a fire service, and I think Goldfeder probably does a good job at that, is that we have to let the community know that, you know, hey, listen, when I did this, I made a mistake. You know, I shouldn't have done that. Like that foam line. I mean, I look back and now I laugh. It's funny, but at the time, the lieutenant was not happy. No, you know, and that's just one of many, you know. And I think I read somewhere that, you know, it's good to learn from our mistakes, but it's better to learn from your mistakes. You know, so I don't consider myself a teacher. I don't teach. I view myself more as a reporter, right? I was in 17 Truck. I was in the squad. I was in Lieutenant in 58 Engine. I worked in SOC and the rescues. And I just paid attention to guys like Nick Visconti, He was like a deputy chief in the 5th Division. Tom Kilker, all these guys, Kennedy, all these guys in the Bronx, Tony Alva, these guys were like iconic because they had done it so much, So all I just took notes. I don't have an original thought in my head, right? I mean, all the stuff that I talk about, either someone else has done, or maybe I could put a little spin on it, maybe to make it work. But I mean, generally speaking, there's nothing that I have that's original. I mean, we're just trying to share the experience, and just be the messenger and the reporter. But for me to say, well, I think that, when we do this, we should stretch a line. And, if I say, yeah, we need to stretch a backup line onto the fire floor, I didn't come up with that. I heard that from someone that I learned from somebody else that's been in the fire department since 1865. Yeah. So the things we do, I think, to sum it up, you say paying it forward, is that if you make a mistake, I'm not saying shout it from the rooftops and don't go on Facebook and say, I did this and don't this, but you should share it, because if it could save somebody's life.
It will save somebody's life.
If we put it on Facebook, it's Facebook official though.
Right. That happened.
One of the things that sticks out to me, and I was sitting there looking over the author a second ago, and it popped in my head. John Norman came down to Horry County, and the union brought him in, to do a program. And I met John and took him and his wife out to dinner. And because I've known John for a number of years, and I got to talking with him, I said, and you'll relate to this. I said, everybody listens to what you guys have to say from FDNY. And I said, you're an icon in itself. And they said, well, I don't view it that way. I said, well, I'm telling you, you're an icon in the fire service. I said, let me ask you a question. You got a lightweight engineered, gusset plated system for a roof. Would you send your guys up on that? Got heavy fire volume in there to vent it? He's like, no. He said, that you just don't do that. He said, that roof system's not going to hold. We all know that, right? I said, well, guess what? When you guys talk about doing ventilation, that's what they think you're doing, because they don't have the buildings you have. There's a hole. We got to go to the roof and ventilate. And I'm like, no, stop. These things are already degraded past holding, And I like to call it, you relate to with me on this. We're truck guys, right? Mm-hmm. We like trucky stuff. This is pretty scary. There's 4 truck guys up here. Okay? Mm-hmm. I did ride on the engine. I did ride on a rescue in my career and all. I related to the foam line thing the other day. I remember tearing down like 3 inductors one day, and it was a 90 gallon per minute fixed nozzle. I couldn't figure out it was 95 that I was supposed to have to be able to flow foam, but as a truck guy for you. But I was like, we don't do that. But, some of these people that are listening don't know the whole piece, or they only pick up certain pieces, which creates danger. Mm-hmm. So I know when we're paying things forward, we have to give them the whole piece, the big picture, the totality of the picture, the window to the wider world view. And you said it a minute ago, the why, the big why as to why we do what we do and how we got. And I'll never forget that thing Jerry Tracy taught me about, that can on the floor and rolling. I pulled that out not long ago when we had the Shore Dry fire in the 7 box for us down at the beach. And I mean, we fought fire all night long. I chased fire in one of those condominiums that were stacked Lego blocks. In a sense, they were boxes that were stacked together. There's void spaces everywhere. We chased that thing all night long. We think we got it out, and then it snuff its nose and run over here. And we think we got that out, and then it go, nee, I'm over here. Finally, it was like breaking daylight, and it was about 7 o'clock in the morning. And another assistant chief and I were standing with the deputy chief, and I looked at him. I said, we need a track hoe. And he looked at me and said, God, I don't want to call for a track hoe. The fire chief will go nuts. I said, we have fought this fire to the point that we're not going to find all the void spaces. I said, it's like finding a treasure on Oak Island. I don't think it exists. We're going to find this fire. It's everywhere. Right. So we did something different. and we actually called for a traco. And when we started taking the building apart, which it done got to the point we couldn't be inside in a lot of the areas fighting fire. This is a good size, 4-story condo, wood frame construction. It was built back in the 70s. That there was fire everywhere, and it was still burning. I mean, they were sitting there hitting it with a ladder truck, putting fire out. And when they pull it apart, they'd spray all kinds of stuff. And it was really cool when the traco got into the electrical thing, and he popped that, and it blew the transformer and all kinds of stuff. And he just sit there for a second. He just started moving the thing again. I said, that guy's hit lines before. But, we're talking about all these things and learning and sharing what we learn. One of the things, and let's talk about this a little bit, is when as older folks came through school, we were taught to quantify. Okay, 2 + 2 is 4, 4 + 4 is 8. That was it. No questions asked. Boom. And I go and, I'm working full time. I'm going to college full time. I went and got my paramedic in the middle of that. I don't know what I was doing, but this is like 1983. And I'm doing an education degree, to go along with it, because I like, teaching folks. I found very early on, I enjoyed that. So I thought, oh, that's be a great degree, and the whole time my mom said, oh, he's going to be a teacher. And I'm like, yeah, nah, I'm going to get in a training division of the fire service somewhere, So kids today, and they taught me this when I got into college, and this was in the early 80s, how to qualify and to quantify. This was the educational components that were coming out. So we look at kids today and we go, what's wrong with them? What's really wrong with these new kids that are coming in here? And you hear this. And I remember in 1979, on January 29th, when I started, they took me outside. I got 3/4 length boots, this long rubber coat that had a wool lining, corduroy collar, orange fireball gloves, this helmet with this big floppy shield, and a sponge. And everybody goes, what's a sponge for? I said, that's to breathe. They taught you to filter breathe with that thing. So they took me out, and they pulled an Akron Selecta Flow nozzle out, putting on 95 GPMs. And the fire chief, Jody Clowers at the time, great guy, but he said, boy, they're going to show you how to fog that nozzle out. And you put your face down on it and you could breathe. Well, in 1979, you could probably do that fairly regular. So I watched the guy do it, man. I went over there, perched, dropped my head down. That shield went boom, right down in that hose stream. I got a nose enema and like to drown before I get my head out of there. And I heard this famous phrase that I hate, I despise. I don't know what we're going to do with this next generation of fire service people. And it's just like, it resonated with me at the time period to the point my blood was boiling. And I was like, I'm just trying to learn. And I'll never forget the same guy that dropped the keys out when I was 10, 11, 12 years old, 13 years old, out the window to the firehouse by the name of Jerry Green, to let myself in, come up. He spent time teaching me things, talking to me, showing me things. I was kind of like you. I didn't get fire engineering, but I had Jerry Green. Jerry Green was teaching me all this stuff. He came over and said, hey, tighten those up on your helmet. I was like, that was amazing. So I went back and I did it. I still today hear that same phrase about, I don't know what we're going to do with this next generation of people coming in. And, one of the things, we had a kid in the academy the other day, we were teaching wildland, and he put a backpack blower on. Well, he had no clue what a backpack blower was. He never operated one, so when they started it, he's standing there holding the wand up in the air. And, one of the training guys says, pull that trigger right there. He pulled, and it was like, he said, now put it to the ground. And he's blowing pine needles. We're in the South. This pine needles is like, oh, wow. It's pretty cool. Generations today, things are different. Our culture's slightly different. But I also remember sitting in a classroom one time when I was talking about the modern fire science and all this, when we first did all that research in Spartanburg. And I was teaching, this kid in the back of the room has got a computer up, an iPad up, like 10 cell phones. I think he had a satellite phone to the governor or somebody. And I said, And he was just steadily going. And I'm like, can you tell me anything that I've said in the last 5 minutes? He looked up, boom, regurgitated almost word for word in a Reader's Digest version. And he used the word, he said, I can also qualify what you're saying by this new study that just posted 3 hours ago from UL. The kid was starving and he was looking stuff up and getting more information than he could process it. So the kids today, there's nothing wrong with them. You think about it, the kids we're getting into the fire academy are the same generation that's going into the military. And we send them to battle and they do complex tactical maneuvers. And when I say complex, they're complex. They do it on hostile environment areas. They do it with pinpoint precision accuracy, and it costs billions of dollars. They don't have a problem doing it. So part of what I challenge and ask folks is it the kids or is it us that has failed to adapt to this learning style or their style of learning? And I got more to follow with that, but I want y'all to talk.
I'm going to tell you right now that when I teach, I always say that it doesn't matter where I go. I always say this. When we all came on, when we were born, we didn't know anything about anything fire service. Somebody taught us or something taught us, either by reading it, someone taught us. And then later on, you learn about it again and it's done a better way. You know, kids today, you know, those adults were talking about us when we were like 10, 11, 12 years old. What's these kids come to? And when they're 18, 19, 20, they were saying the same thing about us. But I'm going to also say this. Back when we were younger in the teens, we didn't have Facebook. We didn't have computers. We didn't have this net. So if you did something, it was all hands-on. You was working on cars. You was doing this and that. You were teaching yourself to swim. You were gaining knowledge by doing things, you know. So now when I teach, I tell people this. I don't care if they don't know anything. I don't expect them to know anything. It's part of my job as not just an officer, but a leader to teach them. And when it's in the firehouse, I'm not just teaching them about the rig, about your district, or about what our ladder truck does or the equipment on it. They're also learning life skills in the firehouse as well. And they don't realize it. They're learning how they're learning everything from us. And you guys all know this. There's somebody in your firehouse along your career who made a difference in your life somehow, some way. I got taught how to tie a tie by a firefighter. Life skill. I got taught just different things. So we have to, even though they have the most powerful device known to man, which is a cell phone, and they can look things up, you still got to do hands-on. You still got to put your hands on it. You still got to do this and that. They can learn all they can about it and recite it, but until you put your hands on it, you know, but it's my job, your job, training divisions, everybody's job to, I don't know if it's a way we convey the information now, but hands-on will never go away. Oh no, never go away. And so you have to understand, and I make my guys on the truck understand, young guys, we have to teach them everything. Stop complaining about it. It's part of your job to teach them. And your name's on it too. You're signing off on them. The officer's signing off on evals. Your name's on it when they leave, you know. I can honestly say I work for a great department. I work with some great guys. Our department's full of great instructors that I wish would go out there and teach on the road. But we also, you know, what we teach and what, you know, everything is just, these guys are getting it, but you got to give it to them. You can either have a good officer, bad officer, good training officer, bad training officer. Depends on what they want to give back. They may be hoarding it up, but these kids don't know anything. It's our job to teach them. I think you all can agree with that. I mean, we had
that conversation in Ohio.
Yeah.
You know, when we're down there about that.
And, you know, let's face it. We talk about the cell phone. I did a little research project and, you know, people were always talking about kids wanting to be on their phones, not wanting to put them down. So I had been around several places and talking to younger firefighters and people, you know, just getting on the job or in the business and ask them why they use their phone. And one of the most profound things that I found when I was in the Sun Valley out at Phoenix for the Arizona Chiefs was a group of these folks that were sitting there, and I asked them the question, and they said, well, one of the biggest reasons we do is we're trying to learn, we're trying to get information, and we're searching for it. And most of the time, y'all won't talk to us. And that resonated. We won't talk to them. We say they're the problem, but is it us? So we started engaging in this conversation. One of the things I will tell you is for over an hour, none of them picked their cell phones up when we were communicating because they were starved for that communications and, wanted that. So I got them on the radio show. We did a blog talk radio live from Phoenix and the Chiefs Association of Arizona with these young folks talking about this.
We always used to say, and we still say in the fire service that, it takes one person to mess up a firehouse. And if they're not talking to you, that's when you worry. But if they're riding you like a mule or making fun of you and stuff, they like you and stuff. So we really can't say that anymore because these kids are confused now because they think we don't like them. You know what I'm saying? We don't talk to them. You're exactly right.
So good part. A lot of folks come into FDNY. I mean, y'all hire hundreds at a time.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I had 118 in recruit academy, either an EMT or fire. I thought I was somebody. Y'all do that all the time. That's like every day for y'all. We were like, we've really accomplished something.
Yeah.
But what are you seeing, Dan?
Well, it's kind of ironic because somehow, I don't know how this happened, but I went from the Proby to now I go to the kitchen and there's no one even remotely close to my age, captains included,
Yeah.
So I became.
Now you're not that old, okay?
Well, I became that guy, I'll be 61 in June. So, I mean, I'm going to be that guy, and I'm on the job longer than all these kids are even on, alive. And, even some of the Chiefs are coming through, they only have like 15, 17 years on the job. So it's a new generation, right? And I remember my father-in-law telling me he came on a job in 57. He was a battalion chief. He was a commander in 3-1 battalion. And he came on at 57 and they said the job has changed. It's changing for the worse, and I'm sure they said it about every generation.
Yep.
So one thing that I do see that bothers me, and I'm always teaching these guys all the time. If they're driving me and we're driving down the block, I'll look at a building. I'll say, this is a rehab building. This is this, that's, there's one entrance here, whatever it is. It's a constant I'll ask them questions.
Mm-hmm.
I'll throw stuff on the table. I do talk to my guys, but what I find, what we're losing, what we had, and maybe it was just because we didn't have the technology, but when I was a fireman, I say fireman because back then we called ourselves firemen. We had the meal, and the kitchen is the nerve center of the firehouse.
Absolutely.
No doubt about it. Everything happens in the kitchen, right? The training happens in the kitchen. The crying, it all happens right on the kitchen table, right? And the meal with the peeling potatoes and cutting vegetables and whatever. And it's all happening around the kitchen. I was in 41 and there was 25 of us in the squad. I think 9 of us got promoted to lieutenant because all we would do is just talk shop 24/7. We had the scanner on, talking about fires. Well, the last fire we went to, the next one we're going to. So it was always about fire. Again, there was no cell phones. And I find now, and I'm dismayed by the fact that, I come down to the kitchen and all I see is this. They're all 12 guys, 13 guys around the kitchen table.
Not even talking.
And they're all just doing this, and the TV's on, and they're all doing this. And okay, I accept that, right? This is the new world that we live in, right? So I'm hoping to get promoted at some point to go back to the fire academy. And I said to Frank and Chuck, we studied, I'm old school, you give me a book, I open it up and I highlight it and I write notes. And this is how I studied for lieutenant, for captain, for battalion chief, for deputy chief. It's how I studied. I can't do it any other way. The kids today, they're all in silos in the firehouse, right? One kid's out on the apparatus floor and he's on his phone. The other kid's in the kiosk in the kitchen. The other guy's up in the weight room. This guy's up in the bedroom, whatever. They're all over the place. They're not, we were all in the same room the whole tour, right? Just engaging in all kinds of nonsense, good, bad, or indifferent. But, but we were talking shop, we were talking fire, and they're in their silence. So how do you, as now become, the instructor for the New York City Fire Department, how do you want to reach this new audience? So I said, well, why don't we do this then? Why don't we come up with little 2-3 minute videos instead of reading the roofman or the roof firefighter at a taxpayer, his job is, and these are his tools. A quick video, like I talked to Champ about it. I said, we're going to do little quick 3 minute. So let's say a kid from an engine somewhere in Brooklyn gets detailed to the Bronx, and he's got now the OV in a H-type, and he's never even seen an H-type building. Now he could just, maybe he'll get on his phone and put video and say H-type OV, and then he'll get a quick 3 minute video on Mike Champo telling him, all right, this is what you're doing. You're going to get off the rig. Yeah. You're going to bring the Halligan and your hook, and you're going to go to the rear, and you're going to do whatever. And maybe that's how we have to broach it. Instead of fighting it, maybe we have to say, okay, well, this is here to stay. It's not going anywhere. So embrace it and use it to our advantage instead of fighting.
And those are good ideas. One of the things that those kids in the Sun Valley told me is they wanted to have that dynamic interaction. They wanted that. So when I sit around the table, and this, we probably had 3 hours with the conversation. And when we got up, they said, that is the most refreshing thing I had. And we talked a lot about the kitchen table. And of course, I was the firehouse cook. I mean, I could get onion peels in the bay, man. I'm telling you, out on the apparatus floor. I can mess some stuff up. Sometimes I just threw them out there, see if they swept or not. But, we sit down and the conversations, like you said, about the fires, the runs, the buildings, jobs that other people had. We were always talking and said, oh, man, did you see that fire that they, even with the cell phones, we had cell phones in, they were like, man, did you see that on what FDNY had? And, it was conversations. And, part of what we understand, it's even in FDNY, the diversity of the city. It's like you go from the Bronx to Brooklyn to Queens, wherever you're at, it's completely different. So it's like understanding jurisdictions and the buildings that are in those jurisdictions and talking about this. Sometimes you don't make it all the way across town frequently, but there's a way to see those things and spending those times. Part of what I found, and I hope our listeners are taking note of this, is you got to spend time with people. It's communications. 100%. Stop and think about it here. How much dialogue and conversation have we had? This is a plethora of information going out, and I hope the listeners are taking advantage of this. You were talking about your kids in the firehouse, and he described his firehouse to us. We're talking about 6x6 rooms, and some of them, they're not big at all. But where do people gather? Where do you want them to gather? And part of it, I think, is their job, the jobs of the folks that are company officers specifically. They're the true trainers of the fire service. Mm-hmm. They're the ones that need to pull these people together and have these conversations. And like these kids told me, is we are starved to have those conversations with people. We're stimulating our brains because that is what the education system does today, is they're constantly having to qualify what they've quantified already. It's kind of like the phone. We can quantify how you set up a phone line to be able to use. How do you qualify it? You got some thoughts on that?
Just everything that we've been talking about, and it's, beating the horse, but still talking about dealing with the new generation and everything like that. And Arthur and I had this conversation a couple of years ago down in Ohio where I said, to your point, I despise that. Oh, these kids today. Stop right there. These kids today, because if you're just these kids today and you're walking away, 100%, you are the problem. You are the problem. It's not them. They want the information, just as I wanted the information,
Right.
just as you wanted the information. You wanted the information, because here's the way it goes. Is right now we're dealing with 2022. We have electric fire trucks, which people are pissing and moaning about. Hey, electric, save the trees and everything. You know what? Cool. Because 100 years ago, you were that guy that was going, hey, gasoline powered engine coming along. My horse will outdo that, whatever. So stop with the complaining. Stop with the complaining, because it's already been done 100 years ago. And 60 years prior to the horse-drawn rig, it was the guys going, good luck getting your horse to run a straight line with your big old steam engine. I know I can run a straight line with 2 buckets in my hand from that pond to that fire in 60 seconds. So, your technology and all that stuff. So whatever. I mean, don't sit there and be afraid of it. Embrace it. Embrace the evolution and embrace the change that's coming, and understand the change and understand that it happens. And so again, 2022, we got electric fire trucks coming out. When I started, NFPA had just changed 1901 to say that you had to have fully enclosed cabs. We still had the canopy cabs. In 1989, people were still running around with true open cab rigs. But in the 1960s, when the canopy cab came along, those guys were being called wusses because we didn't have a roof over our head. In the generation before that, and it goes back, and like I said, all the way back to the bucket brigade about stuff. But there were always those people in those generations that took you and hey, this is how you do this, and I the big names out here and everything like that, especially when I was younger, John Norman, Tom Brennan, Frank Brannigan, seeing them, Harry Carter walking down the street, you're like, oh, avert your eyes, I don't want to be seen. I'm going to say something stupid, but
That's my life.
it's all of our lives. You're not alone. And I, so you see these people but for me, the people I remember are the firemen I worked alongside when I started, the firefighters, not the officers necessarily, because at the time, and this is, I think, another problem inherent in the fire services. We're all looking to the top, like we want to be in charge. Maybe not all of us. Some of us are content being firemen, but everybody, and they focus on, I got to get up there to the five bugles. Hey, why don't you try being down here, being a fireman first? So the people I learned from, Tony Racevich, trying to think of some of the other guys at Hillside there, the guys, the firemen, you know what I mean? Those are the guys that I learned from and that I wanted to pay attention to. Sure, captain, lieutenant, certainly I want to take your advice and listen to what you have to say, but I don't want to be you. I want to be this guy right now. When my time comes, man, I'll talk to this guy. It wasn't even a senior guy. It was a junior guy, talking to get 2-3 years on the job, because he's just a little bit past me. And I related to him because I'm new. You're not as new anymore, but you're seasoned, and so follow you and certainly listen to the senior man too. But when I'm at the 2 or 3 year mark, then the 5-10 year guys or maybe the 10 or 15 year guys who I want to listen to, what I mean? That was just me. I just wanted to focus on my true peer, my rank, not focus on that. And that's something too that we need to instill in these kids too, is that, hey, someday you can be in charge and you'll appreciate the fact when you get in charge, you're going to regret being in charge. Like, there's always that thing. If you knew what you had to do, you would have done it, but
it's like that 5 bugle thing. That's the worst job in the firehouse. He threw something out there. How many of y'all rode tailboards?
A few times, but didn't like it.
I was in a towel ladder. So we had the open cab.
Yeah.
So
you stood up.
Yeah. Well, there was the
man saver bar.
The man saver bar, and then it was that seat that kind of just
just the jump seat.
The flip down jump seat. Yeah. So if you had the can or the irons, you were sitting with your back, and then the roof and the OV set, facing. And then what I used to like to do when I was 17 is I'd sit up on the turntable, and they had the water pipe, and I would just wrap my arm around it, and especially in the summertime, But yeah, I tell you though, one time we were going to a fire, and I was sitting up on because we only had the boots anyways. We only had rubber boots and a coat, and you just grab your helmet. So you didn't really have to put on bunker gear and whatnot. So I was sitting on it and I thought we were going one way, and our chauffeur JJ, I guess we were going right instead of left. And he made the sharp turn and I just grabbed on, and I was like, I was like hanging on like with dear life, like as we're turning, like I can imagine what it looked like, just me hanging off
like Kramer on the tiller.
Like Kramer, yeah. So, but it was fun. I mean, being with the open cab, it's just like you can, not for nothing. In being serious though, from another perspective though, we lost something when we went to the enclosed cabs. What do you think we lost? What do you think we lost when we went to these enclosed cabs?
The ability to see.
Yeah, like we lost the sense. Like I advocate when I'm in my Chiefs car, I don't care if it's 0 degrees or if it's 100 degrees, my window's open.
Right.
Because
smell everything.
You're going to get something a block or two away. You have to be kind of focused in on it, but you'll get a little whiff of something. And then when you turn the corner and then you see people doing this in the street and you get that smell, you have something. And when we had the open cab, you could stand up, look over the top, and you could see what was going on. You saw everything that was going on. You saw all your buildings. Now we got everybody in this enclosed cab, and you're not looking. You're kind of facing back, and you can hardly see out the window. So I think we lost something. We gained in, like Gordon Graham talks about this too. He talks about it, and he says that we do things well-intentioned in the fire service. Like bunker gear is well-intentioned, but we lost something as well because we go in too deep. We lost our senses. We don't feel our ears. Well, the same being in the back of that truck or that engine. You're not getting a good size up. You don't know your neighborhood anymore. We used to drive around the South Bronx, and I knew every friggin' building in my district. I'll tell you a funny story. I was in the middle of Spain, some island off the coast of Spain, Mallorca, I think it was. And we had this girl, and he said, oh, she's from New York. She's going to be the entertainment. She was a singer, black girl, And anyways, she put on the show, and afterwards I had to meet her because I'm in the middle of Spain, Mallorca, Spain, and I had to tell her that I'm from New York too. And I said, where are you from? She goes, I'm from the Bronx. I said, really? Bronx? Really? What part? She goes, South Bronx. I said, come on, I'm a fireman. I was a fireman down in the South Bronx. So where'd you live? She says, I lived on 141st Street. Really? What was your address? 411. The 3-story red brownstone? That was your building? And she looked at me like,
stalker.
I said, what? She said, what?
That's what we do as firemen.
You had the 3-story that was a red brownstone.
Yeah.
On the north side of the block. And she goes, yeah. But we knew our buildings. We drove around that neighborhood. You're sitting, going to water leaks and whatever, God knows what, 10 times a day, you get to know your neighborhood pretty well.
And I still have to instill that though in people that when you're out, whether you're going shopping, whether you're on a medical run, following the ambulance, whatever you're doing, is not just the building you're in, but the path there and back, taking a look at everything and eyeballing all that stuff and taking that stuff in.
Yeah.
And, but yeah, certainly there was a difference because you were taking in the sights and smells in the neighborhood as well, the true smells in the neighborhood and being able to see much more other than just out the window. But still, I think we're still there as far as having to instill to people to pay attention what's around them. And, so, when you meet somebody, you go, oh, yeah, you're in that yellow house over on the corner there, northwest corner. You got a nice garden.
Talk about the kids today, right? So when I get a driver for the day, I might get a young guy he's detailed up for the day and we get a phone alarm for fire, whatever, and the first thing they do is the phone comes out and the Waze goes on. And I just say, put that away, put that down, because, I'm Waze. I said,
I'm Waze.
Put that away.
Right.
Just listen
I'll
to me.
get you there.
I'll get you there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
It's
can.
They're so reliant on the phone.
I know. Yeah.
It kind of reminds me of a story when I went to Chapel Hill. I had experience, came, out of West Virginia to Florida, moved to Chapel Hill, and they sent me down, detailed me down to Station 2, and I was with Claude Neville. And one of the people there wanted to take a vacation day, but they needed somebody that could drive. Well, I hadn't driven Chapel Hill. I drove fire trucks, before I knew how to pump or whatever. And I went down, and it was an old Mack fire truck. And of course, I loved a Mack fire truck. And I went down to Claude and he said, come on out here. Tell me about this truck. And of course, right off the bat, you knew that it had a waterless 2-stage pump. I looked very quickly at the discharge, 1250 GPM pump. I said, and he said, what do you know about that water? So I said, well, we're about 500 GPMs, man. I got to switch. I got to get volume, pressure. Okay, get up in that truck. Let's see if you can drive it. That's all he wanted to hear. So I got up and I wheeled him around. I told him when I got in the truck, I said, look, I don't know these streets. I don't know where I'm going. I haven't been here long enough to know the district really. You tell me left or right, you be the ways, and I'll get you there. We pulled back into the station. Claude called, you can sit at home. I got me a driver. and I never left too after that. I was at station 2 and became the driver. Claude was the guy. He's since passed away. He died of breast cancer as a firefighter. A male firefighter with breast cancer.
It does happen, yeah.
And like I told him, and I tried to get him to go and try to pursue this. I said, Claude, this is fire service related. Your years of being on the job, because he was on the job forever. But he was the guy that could tell you where every connection was on the University of North Carolina's campus. He could tell you where every hydrant was you were going to hit. He could tell you every nook and cranny. He could tell you where the alarm panels were. Because I'll never forget, I'm going up the road. This is several years into this now, and I'm riding as the acting officer. And we're going up the road, and they couldn't find the alarm panels. One of the captains. And Claude said, Cat. And he talked that way too. He had a little Jack Nicholson in him. He said, you tell that captain if he'll go across that hallway into the next building, the alarm panel's on his right. So I'm like, he never steered me wrong. So I came up, and the battalion chief at the time agreed with him, and he going up the road, he reached over and pulled the air brake on the truck. It's still running. Was across the doghouse, punch him in the ribs. I told you, Cat. I told you they keep me around so I can tell y'all young pups where the toilet paper's at. But that's something we've lost. You know, that just sparked. I forgot all about some of those stories. But when you said, "Oh, I'm the ways," Claude was my ways. He'd tell me left, right. After a while, I knew where I was going because I sat and studied the district.
Well, the problem is, with this, I need my driver to I have a lot going on. I have to listen to the handset. I have to listen if I can get the handy talkie, because we have 2 distinct radios. We have the one that talks to the dispatcher, but I also have the fire ground.
Yeah.
I have to listen to what's going on. I get information. I'm looking where we're going, and the driver has to do a little bit of size up as well. And they get. I see them. Some of the kids, they drive like this with following the phone and paying attention to nothing. Like sometimes I miss something on the radio, and my aide will say, like my good aide, they'll be like, Chief, did you hear that? They got apartment 15G on the, oh, wow, I missed that. I was listening to whatever. So we're a team. Even though he's my aide, or you want to call him, we're still the command team, and if he's focused on just this one phone while he's driving, I'm losing 50% of my team.
Yeah, I don't need a chauffeur. Okay, terminology and stuff.
We call them chauffeurs.
I know you're chauffeurs.
We call them chauffeurs, yeah.
For the rest of the world, if you're looking for a limo driver, it's a chauffeur or whatever. And so I don't need a taxi driver or limo driver just to get me there.
Yeah.
I need somebody that, like you said,
is engaged. So he's doing his own size up. Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe he's, I might need him to.
And he does. You forgive me if I misunderstand this about you guys, but he does possibly have the task of helping you with the size up if you have ability to get around to a side or something.
If I have
you may have to send him over and say, hey, take a look over here for me.
Yeah.
And if he's like, well, how do I get over there? If he has to look at look at Google Earth to see how to get from here to that doorway, then you got a problem.
See, I have 2 roles sometimes. As a battalion chief, first I'm the IC until the deputy gets there, and then I run the fire anyway.
Right.
And then if I come in second, I'm the fire sector. I'm the operations chief. And I take my aide with me. And if I have a really good aide, like, a guy with some time or some good experience, I could say to him, like, hey, Rick, do me a favor, just go to the floor above and take a look, see if we got any extension. I'll get a report, but I still like to get some eyes on stuff.
Sure.
And, if they're not engaged, and they just think, like you said, like just they're a taxi driver, then I've lost this great asset. You know what I mean?
They've lost it though, too. They've lost but they don't know what they're missing, so to speak. I mean, you know what I mean? They're losing out on all that opportunity to learn and pick stuff up, watch you operate, watch how you operate in that right seat for 10 or 15 years from now when they want to be sitting in that seat or whatever. They're missing all that. They're missing the ability to look and see where things are in front of them and where a better route might be, whatever, in terms of like, oh yeah, I see all the traffic up there or whatever. They miss out. They're missing out too. And,
like we spoke about in the class Monday, we should all be sizing up constantly. Coal was wealth, construction, occupancy area. We should be doing this constantly, updating it. And I'm not the only one on the fire ground that should be doing a size up.
Right.
He should be doing his own size up. The engine officer should be doing his size up because he might have to be more focused on where's the water supply and how am I bringing the line and what's the area. The truck might be worried about the height of the building and the location of the fire. So we all have different components of that size up.
Right.
But, we all have to be engaged and we have to constantly update because many times I'll get a phone alarm, they'll hand me the ticket and I'll read it, put the glasses on, of course. Okay, I get the ticket now, I'll put the glasses on. But a lot of times the dispatcher will call me en route. Hey, Bronx to Battalion 3, we're getting our reports of 321, whatever, Longwood Avenue, whatever, like things change in that
very quickly.
Leaving the firehouse. So I might miss stuff. So we all have to be like paying attention.
So you told the story about the SIDS and you got a general, corner box for a reported vacant and, by the grace of God, 20 seconds,
true story.
20 seconds earlier, you were saying that, hey, what do we got for this 405, whatever it was, daily or whatever like that? And they're like, oh, it's a vacant, yep, time to go. And then, like you said, 20 seconds after they pull out, it collapses. Everything. So yeah, all part of that.
Gotta be dialed in, engaged.
Absolutely. Well, we're getting pretty close to the end. Some of the things you resonated, an old name popped up. You talking about a good chauffeur for somebody, Dino Pappas. Drove John Norman around, and Dino actually retired, came to work in Horry County.
Dino Pappas. He was in 39 engine.
He may have been, but he went to drive John Norman as his
I
age.
know Dino. I went to Rio de Janeiro with Dino.
Dino
in 1987.
He's in Horry County, and of course,
oh wow,
he worked for a while, volunteered for a while. Still a guy that comes to the 7 House and hangs out with the folks, and just to sit and have those conversations, like you said, are so important. So as we're closing here, Mike, I'm gonna start with you. Parting thoughts.
Well, I mean, for anybody that's watching or going to watch or whatever like that, just as Chief Sheridan said, we don't, none of our stuff is original. I mean, maybe here and there at some point I did say something original, probably stupid, but everything we put forward is, again, paying forward what people have paid forward to us. So everybody has that responsibility. And as you watch us talk, and just, appreciate and take the enthusiasm and keep running with it. Take that, external and internal motivation and just keep moving forward with it. Keep evolving. Just, I don't know, I could go on forever. So I'll let you guys go so that I don't waste all the time.
All right. Yeah.
Well, like Dennis Callipy said, just remain teachable. Don't be an Ike. I know everything. Even if you know it, just be gracious and say thank you. Because when we think we know everything, we probably don't, and when we don't think we know everything, we probably don't. Not that we know everything, but
right.
So it's kind of a paradox.
It is, but it's a true paradox. It is true.
Arthur.
I would probably tell people to continue to learn and teach and pass it on. Continue to size up everything, including life, about yourself. Continue to watch your 6, and then basically, have good integrity. Leave it better than you found it, and try to be better than you were yesterday.
Well, I'll wrap up by saying it was an honor and a privilege to sit here with you guys and talk shop. This is our kitchen table. And that's one of the things I'm going to part with is, folks, you got to sit down at that kitchen table. That is the birthplace of knowledge. That's where you're going to learn. And it's important when you're sitting there, learn from each other, but also learn each other. That's when we get to know each other. That's where we build the brotherhood and the sisterhood that goes along with this. One of the key things that I always like to do, especially when we sit down to dinner, was have a period of time we didn't talk fire, but we talked family, because we are family. And that's how we took care of each other. We knew each other. We knew when kids were sick. We knew when special dates were coming up. We knew when that person was just a little off sync a little bit, and you could have those tough conversations. And as officers, one of the things I'm going to challenge you to do is have tough conversations. It's okay to have those tough conversations with people. As a boss, you're not necessarily their friend all the time, but you are responsible for them. But take it to the kitchen table. Thank you guys for joining me. We hate that Chris Nom's not here, a little under the weather.
We miss you, Chris, of course.
Yep. We hope that you're feeling better. He said last night, he texted me, he said, I'm about to get my feet back underneath me. So we're excited about that. I hate he's not here, because we always have a good time running around doing the things that we do. But for taking it to the streets and Chris Nom and Fire and Training, I'm Doug Cline, your host. Thank these guys for being here, but thank you for listening. I'd be remiss if I didn't tell you that all we do is dedicated to the men and women who are in the streets, working 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days of the year, taking care of our most valued resource, which is our people. We need to take care of our people so that we can take care of others in our communities. So stay safe, train hard, train often. Don't train until you get it right. Train until you can't get it wrong. That's all we got for this go around. We're at FDIC Live. We look forward to seeing you on another one of our episodes, and make plans now for FDIC 2023. Be here.